Tonight, I am going to continue with the book Karma Chagme's Mountain Dharma, Volume 1, as taught by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. I am going to start with the song of the meaninglessness nature of samsara. And this is the final of the 4 songs about the 4 ordinary foundations. Rinpoche feels that this is an extremely important topic. I'm going to begin with a quote of Rinpoche's, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. Quote, "His purpose is to help us clearly understand why we have to practice without a distracted or confused mind." So this is not just for people that are going to be doing a lifelong solitary retreat. This is for ordinary practitioners as well. There is this comparison with shooting an arrow at a target. If you're going to hit the target, you have to see the target very clearly. Of course, if you are an archer and wanting to hit, you might say, the bullseye of the target, a particular spot on the target, then clarity is very, very important. So the purpose of Dharma is to overcome suffering. And until we know then what this actually is, what is the cause of our suffering, we're never going to be successful at overcoming suffering. So when we are practicing Dharma to overcome suffering, we have to understand the causes of this suffering. We have to understand the meaningless part of samsara. He uses the example of a doctor and taking medicine. So one meaning of Dharma is to straighten or to heal. So if the doctor prescribes medicine and we don't take it, or we take it improperly, then the medicine will not be effective. So you cannot heal. I kind of get a chuckle out of to straighten, because more than once I have been told when I was young to straighten up. I think many of us have been told something similar to that. And this is my own editorial comment here. There is a lot of comparison to the Buddha and a doctor, that the Buddha wanted us to heal. We go to a doctor because the doctor wants us to heal and will tell us what we need to do to heal. There's a very classic analogy between the Buddha and the Four Noble Truths and the doctor and the Four Noble Truths. So the analogy goes that the truth of suffering is a doctor telling you you're sick. And the second noble truth is the cause of suffering. And this is a doctor telling you this is the cause of your sickness. Then the third noble truth is the truth of cessation, and that is a bit like a doctor telling you, well, your illness is curable. It's possible to cure you from the illness. It's not incurable. And the fourth noble truth is the path which leads to the cessation of suffering. And this is the doctor telling you the protocol that you must follow to cure this illness that you have. Now, my personal commentary on this analogy is that Buddha was actually talking about working with our mind. Our mind is what continues from one lifetime to another, endlessly experiencing birth, old age, sickness, and death. And I believe if we would look at modern medicine, that the Buddha is more like a psychiatrist, because a psychiatrist works with our mind. And frequently, of course, they will take into consideration actual physical causes of mental suffering and so forth. But anyway, I think that that's always an interesting way to look at the Four Noble Truths and the doctor analogy. So getting back to the book here, once we understand the causes of our suffering, which is our afflicting emotions, conflicting emotions, our kleshas, many different names for it, and our karma, with this knowledge and understanding, we'll be very motivated to apply the antidote, which is, of course, the Dharma. If you do not know the point of why you are doing a practice, then you won't be able to have any effective progress. There's really little benefit and no results. So needing why to practice is very, very important. Karma Chakme tells Lama Sotram Gyamtso that after the proper contemplation of the suffering of samsara, your mind will not be peaceful in the daytime, and you will not sleep well at night. Rinpoche posits, well, why cause yourself this amount of discomfort? And don't you wonder why you don't understand the suffering of the lower realms? So what he's trying to get across here is the sufferings of samsara are endless. We have had an endless, from the beginningless beginning series of lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We've been in all of the six realms over and over and over again. The metaphor that is frequently used is an endless ocean with waves. The waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Constant, unavoidable, unpredictable. When we dedicate the merit, it refers to this. So we are constantly creating new causes for future suffering. And we cause ourselves to be in the lower realms. We don't like it. We feel powerless to change. And that this is the true nature of samsara. So when you have this understanding, then you are motivated, or at least have a better chance of being motivated to escape. So these points are brought up here. Now, how do you escape from this ocean of suffering? First of all, you need to find someone to show us the method of escape. And then we have to take refuge in the three jewels. We frequently take refuge in all kinds of things. We can take refuge when we're young in our parents. When we get older, we can take refuge in a partner. We can take refuge in our own, you might say, street smarts. We could take refuge in our having a young, strong, handsome body, or a beautiful body, or our intelligence. I remember a lawyer saying recently that she would rather be beautiful than smart. And so on down. We can take refuge in the government to protect us. When you're my age and you're on Social Security, this becomes, you might say, a little nicer form of refuge, but it's, of course, it's temporary. So taking refuge, it's important to really actually take refuge in the three jewels rather than, well, I took refuge, but in the meanwhile, if anything happens, I've got my insurance agent that I can always call. I've got the number of my congressperson, and on and on and on. Then there's my lawyer. So the second point is we have to maintain with a lot of clarity and precision whatever precepts and vows that we have taken. So refuge precepts, lay precepts, bodhisattva precepts. Rinpoche and Karma Chakme say that they are like a boat which is free of leaks. It's strong and it's proper. And the third is the Lama's instructions. So the Lama's instructions are like paddles. This is how you travel in a boat. If you don't have paddles in a boat and it doesn't have a motor, well, how are you going to get anywhere besides just drifting where the wind and the waves take you? The fourth point is diligence and effort. So it is totally up to you. This is a very important point, and that is that the Buddha can't do it for you. If he could, well, definitely your consciousness was around when the Buddha walked India and gave teachings. And if he could have liberated you then, he would have. But he didn't. And now you have a chance to do this. And it is in your hands. You are given the information and the tools to do this. If you don't do it, it won't happen. Now, Karma Chagme goes into the suffering of the six realms to emphasize the point of being vigilant day and night and to keep focused on getting out. This is why, going back to what I said earlier here, which is really what he said, is that you want to be very uncomfortable day and night of the suffering of samsara. You want to cause yourself a great amount of discomfort due to understanding the suffering of these different realms. Again, because if we're not highly motivated to do what is necessary, we won't do it. So he starts out with the hot hells. Again, here is a personal experience that I had. I had not been a lama for more than a few years, and I was invited to teach at KTD, and I thought teaching on the four ordinary foundations, these four thoughts that turn one's mind to the Dharma, would be a very good topic to talk about. So Sunday morning, it was my turn to talk about this topic, the suffering of the six realms. And as causes and conditions would happen, a busload of people showed up at KTD. They were looking for the Zen mountain monastery, and they got lost, and so they stopped at KTD instead. And they walked into the shrine room, not having heard the other three thoughts. And there were children with them. And I started talking about the hot hells and the suffering in the hot hells. And I think they thought they had stumbled onto a Pentecostal meeting, and some of them actually walked out. But I am going to go through the hot hells and then the cold hells and so forth here. So the experience of the hot hells is that you experience this feeling of being burnt in boiling water, of melted lava being poured down your throat. And it's continuous for thousands and thousands of years. I end various descriptions of the hot hells, and there are many hot hells. You see people being in rivers of lava that are being burnt up. You see people in boiling pots, water, being stirred by demons with sticks and paddles that are just cooking you. Just all kinds of different ways that you are tortured with heat and you can't escape it. Now, then there are the cold hells. And this is my explanation of the difference in karma between a hot hell and cold hell. In the hot hell, both of them, it's anger and the actions that are motivated by anger that cause you to be reborn there. But the hot hells, one is just plain, you might say, emotionally hot. And you see enemies everywhere, and you try to destroy the enemies. In the cold hell, it's a little different. It's kind of the attitude of, I don't get angry, I'm above that. I get even. And so you are very cold and calculating. And then when you find that you have a chance to defeat your enemy, you attack, you ambush them, and so forth. So the suffering of the cold hell is that, first of all, you're naked, you have no protection from the cold, and you have no protection from the heat in the hot hells. And as a result of that, your body freezes, it cracks, it might even fall into little pieces, kind of like chipped ice, if you would buy a bag of chipped ice at the store. And then, of course, once it falls to pieces, then it becomes whole and freezes again, cracks, and falls to pieces. And again, in the hot hells, if your body happens to be burnt up, you will be miraculously restored to the way it was just before it burnt up. So you can't get out by burning up or freezing and cracking to pieces. The next realm is the Preta realm, or the hungry ghost realm. And here you cannot find enough food to satisfy your hunger or enough water to satisfy your thirst. So for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, you are constantly starving and dying of thirst, looking for water, looking for food. And of course, there's none to be found. You can't go online and order from Amazon or DoorDash or go to the local convenience store and get food. You just plain can't find food. Then we're working from the bottom, going up through the lower realms. The third lower realm is the animal realm. And animals live in a constant state of fear of being attacked, being eaten. There is this nervousness. If you look at any of the animals that you can see, like squirrels, and the squirrels are even chasing each other. And then, of course, there was a couple of years ago, it was in the fall. At night, I would hear a barred owl hooting. And after a couple of weeks of that in the daytime, I did not see so many squirrels in my yard running around. And after another month of that, there were even fewer squirrels running around in the daytime. And just think about that, that these owls have very good eyesight at night. The squirrels don't. This might be the wrong metaphor, but they're sitting ducks. And all of a sudden, bang, an owl hits them and they are a meal. Another example that I like to use is that bald eagle looks so majestic, flying circles in the sky. I have a beautiful picture of an eagle sitting on a tree in my backyard. On the other hand, I have frequently in the wintertime, 10 below zero, see an eagle eating roadkill on the side of the road. Now, that just doesn't seem like the kind of life that I would like to have. It doesn't seem so majestic. And even eagles will fight each other to get to dead animals or live animals. I've seen pictures of eagles where one swoops down, gets a fish that was swimming in this river, swoops up, and another eagle attacks and grabs the fish from him. So even though some animals might seem to have a pretty good time, it's still not all that nice. And what does an animal do when they're sick? Do they dial 911 and have take them to the doctor? I don't think so. If the animal is fortunate, it's a pet, and the pet owner takes them to the vet as opposed to taking them out to a gravel pit and shooting them. But you get the idea that it's just not all that good being an animal. Now, the next realm is the demigod or the Asura realm. And these are the jealous gods. They are constantly quarreling and fighting. They are jealous. And there's not a single moment of peace. Again, thousands and thousands of years. Gods have very long lives. And of course, the problem with their fighting and quarreling is that they usually pick a fight with the full gods who are more powerful than they are, and they are bound to lose. And in the Wheel of Life Tanka, there is always this picture, and that is a tree that is a very beautiful tree that is very tall, and it's rooted in the jealous god realm, but it is so tall that it flowers and bears incredibly beautiful flowers and incredibly tasty fruit, but it does this in the full god realm. So the jealous gods can have none of this pleasure. And there is always a picture of a jealous god with an axe at the base of the tree in the jealous god realm, chopping it down, because if I can't have it, the full gods can't have it either. So that brings us to the God realm, and this is one of luxury, bliss, beautiful forms, and it is just so wonderful. Everybody is blissed out. The goddesses are incredibly beautiful. The gods are incredibly handsome. They have very long lives with no suffering. But then as they reach the time of the end of their life as a god, being gods, they are able to foresee where that they are going to die, and secondly, that they will be reborn in a lower realm and lose everything that they have, and that they are powerless to do anything about this. And so they have very powerful suffering and pain. And the dying process lasts for a very long time. To continue now, the suffering of the lower realms are really greater than we can comprehend. We can hear about it and we can contemplate it, but it is really so far beyond our experience that we are not able to fully comprehend it. The human realm, the demigod, and the God realms, we experience some happiness, and they are mixed with our afflictive states of mind, our kleshas, which literally means poison or poison of the mind. And being mixed with kleshas, it creates more unhappiness. Karma Chakme makes this analogy. It's like nutritious food that has poison in it that we've added. I just realized this. I don't have anything in my notes about the human realm. I'm not sure if this is something that I missed or it just was not in there. So I'll add a little bit here about the human realm. It's frequently referred to as the poverty mentality. Humans, we have a mixture of suffering and pleasure, but no matter how much pleasure we have, we never think it's enough. A good example that I like to use is there are people alive today that are worth around $300 billion. Now, if this really bought or brought, take your pick of the word, happiness, why wouldn't they just retire and enjoy $300 billion? No, they don't have enough. They want $400 billion. And if they would get $400 billion, they would want $500 billion. That is the nature of the human mentality, which is not having enough. Various afflictive states of mind are attachment, anger, jealousy, and anger, jealousy, and pride come from attachment. And we are the creator of samsara. We create it with our own afflictive emotions. So this is the way things are laid out here. It's anger that causes the hell realm, tremendous greed or miserliness that creates the preta realm. The animal realm is, this might be a direct quote here in the book, you act in a way that you think is virtuous, but actually is rather stupid. Again, I have nothing here for the human realm, but I'm going to stick with the poverty mentality. The Asura, or the jealous gods, as you become jealous, whenever other people seem to practice better or seem to have better results than you. How about that for an, oh, that too close to home here. And then the God realm is you have practiced the Dharma and also have accumulated great virtue, but you have a feeling of pride and arrogance. And so you are preoccupied with your own personal needs alone. And I remember hearing this from a Dharma practitioner before I even went into 3-year retreat. And it was, I used to be proud, I wasn't arrogant. So I've finished up talking about arrogance. And now to continue here, once you understand these different conflicting emotions and how they relate to each other and how you relate to them, you realize it is absolutely necessary to engage in the Dharma, to be free of these in any form, strong or mild. So we need to take a close look at ourselves and make an honest assessment. Quote, it may be rather painful to remember all of the negative ones, but you will clearly see that if we are constantly participating in afflictive emotions and negative actions, that they lead to where we do not want to go. So it's very good to remember these, but remember them in a way that encourages us to work on eliminating them rather than beating ourselves up with, oh, I'm constantly screwing up, I'm an idiot, yada, yada, yada. That's just another afflictive emotion. Guilt is an afflictive emotion too. It's not a direct one. It's, you might say it's a knockoff afflictive emotion. Also, remember that we have accumulated negative karma from countless previous lives. And all of this needs purification. Last week, I talked about the one good thing about negative karma or bad karma is that it can be purified. So if we acknowledge these actions, acknowledge that even if we don't remember doing them because they were done in previous lifetimes, that if we acknowledge, yes, I did these things, and make a strong commitment not to do them, purification is possible. And quite honestly, since our consciousness has been present from the beginningless beginning, that we've done all of it. We have done everything. Meaningless words aren't enough. We have to make a real effort. If we do make this real effort, if we are conscientious about it, if we really mean it, if we have confidence in the Dharma, confidence in ourselves, then you will have success. You will realize that you are having success, that you're decreasing your afflictive emotions that you're engaging in, and you're having more positive emotions. In the question and answer section to this chapter, he talks about a kadampa practice, which is that you would sit when you're practicing and you would have two piles of small stones, a pile of black stones and a pile of white stones. And as you're practicing and a thought arises, if it was a positive or a good thought, you would take a white stone and put it in a certain place. And if it was a negative thought or emotion, you would take a black stone and put it in the pile. And the point was, you would then kind of keep track of how big the pile of black stones was and how big the pile of white stones was at the end of your day's practice. And if you were progressing, the pile of white stones would get bigger over time, and the pile of black stones would get smaller over time. So again, we have to realize, and you might say make peace with the fact that we're not perfect and that it's important to recognize our faults and then to work with them. Now, then at the end of each day, before going to sleep, take a look at your behavior for that day. And when you have done some negative actions, then have regret and generate the resolve not to do them in the future. And when you have done positive things, well, rejoice in them and dedicate the virtue to the benefit of all sentient beings. What is really important here is to be aware and mindful of our mental state as we go through the day. If an individual is doing that, if a practitioner is doing that, then, quote, he or she is a true practitioner of Buddhism. He finishes up this particular song with going over the very essence of the Buddha's teachings, which is commit not a single evil action. Practice virtue completely. This is a quote. Complete not a single evil action. Practice virtue completely. End quote. Now, if an individual is doing all of this, then again, he or she is a true practitioner of Buddhism. Now, Lama Tsultrim Gyamtso ends this song with his own dedication, which is, quote, "May these teachings be of benefit to many sentient beings."